QR's got no one to blame except themselves.
Paul Pluta is the whistleblower behind documents which revealed the extent of the driver shortage.
It's the executives at QR who should be ashamed of themselves. They should get out of their Statesman, get out of their 5 Series BMW and take the train.
Since the data was collected, the Queensland rail saga has claimed a Transport Minister and a CEO. Now a new minister says she's determined to fix it.
We know that this is not going to be fixed overnight. It's not going to be fixed in a couple of months.
Max Futcher, 7 News.
Good evening. Queensland Rail and the state government won't say if heads will roll over the significant staff shortages continuing to impact the rail network across the southeast.
Commuters are still being hit hard with hundreds of services to be cancelled in the coming weeks. Pippa Sheehan joins us now. And Pippa, is there any relief in sight for passengers?
Well, Georgie, no, there isn't. Across the next 2 weeks, more than 400 services are set to be cancelled as Queensland Rail continues to deal with this massive issue. Now, this means commuters could face waits of up to half an hour on their way to and from work each day. There's more than 100 new staff who've been announced, including 100 train drivers and 100 guards who'll come onto the network. They, however, will need to be trained in the meantime, though no one's saying whose job is on the line over this debacle. Back on track, but not entirely ready to go.
I know that we have got this wrong. I can't explain why we've got this wrong, but we will be looking at that in the very short term.
Starting tomorrow, more than 400 train services will be cancelled across the next 2 weeks due to a lack of adequately trained staff.
We are incredibly angry about what has happened here, but the priority must be on making sure that services are provided.
The government is livid with plans to appoint someone to investigate what went wrong.
To do a forensic examination, I want to know who knew what when, why it was not passed up the chain.
As the issue played out across the weekend in the southeast, the Minister for Transport, Sterling Hinchliffe, attended the Gold Coast 600. The opposition says that's simply unacceptable.
This minister should be sacked, the Premier should be strong and get rid of this minister today.
And this issue did not happen overnight. He is the Transport Minister. It is his job to make sure trains run on time.
Sterling Hinchliffe says he was supporting the event as Minister for the Commonwealth Games.
I was doing that at the same time as keeping in close contact with the CEO, keeping in close contact with our team.
Queensland Rail says it underestimated the amount of training staff would need to familiarise themselves with the new Redcliffe Peninsula line. Commuters venting their frustrations.
I got to the station early considering that there might be hold-ups.
I don't know how they could possibly have let it happen. They've had plenty of time to get more drivers on. I don't know why they couldn't get them.
Now, there are a number of drivers who are in training at the moment. Queensland Rail estimates around 4 or 5 of them will complete their competencies each day, which will help, though this new timetable will be only reassessed in 2 weeks' time. They haven't ruled out more changes. Staff say it's possible these headaches for commuters could last months and say the best thing for anyone to do is to check the TransLink website every day.
It's not good, is it? Thank you, Pippa Sheehan, with that update.
As you've heard, the Transport Minister is also under pressure to quit. Sterling Hinchliffe joined me in the studio a short time ago. Well, Minister, you've just announced your third timetable change in a fortnight. It includes 333 fewer services Monday to Friday. Is it time for you to go?
I'm 100% focused on delivering this reliable and sustainable timetable for the commuters of South East Queensland. That's what the Premier's asked me to do. And I'm remaining focused on that.
Well, let me run you through the litany of errors and delays that have taken place with Queensland Rail. You have a shortage of more than 100 drivers. That was flagged in a report as far back as January, although you weren't aware of it. It takes a year to train drivers. A huge overtime bill of more than $500,000 a fortnight. You've had the 3 timetable changes, hundreds of cancelled trains and service disruptions. It took a week for the Queensland Rail CEO, Helen and Chairman Michael Klug to resign after they admitted planning for the new Redcliffe line had been seriously flawed. And you learnt of the crisis from Twitter. What would it take for you to resign?
I'm focused on delivering the services that South East Queensland commuters expect and rely upon. That's what the Premier's tasked me to do. I'm making sure that we'll see on Monday a reliable and sustainable timetable delivered. Frankly, QR failed to deliver the right advice and planning. I've worked very closely with the new acting CEO of Queensland Rail, and we've got in place this great timetable that'll deliver, sure, a lesser level of service, but it'll do it in a way that will supply reliability and won't break the back of our workforce.
We know that there's an overtime bill of more than $500,000 a fortnight. You had to pay out the former CEO, Helen, $158,000. What's the bottom line here?
Well, these are costs that are coming from QR. Queensland Rail, as a statutory authority, is covering these costs, is dealing with these costs. This is making an impact to some extent on the dividend that would come to government otherwise, but our focus is on delivering services. QR is there to deliver services to Queenslanders, the South East Queenslanders in particular, in terms of our city train network, and that's what we will do.
But one of the other things that you want to do with the driver training is you want to fast track that training. Will safety be compromised as a result of that, and can you give an assurance that it won't be? Absolutely, in all measures in relation to our rail network, safety comes first. Safety is our first priority. Safety is the reason why we've had this painful situation in the last couple of weeks where QR has had to cancel services because of a lack of train crew. There were potentially drivers who could do it, but under the rules, they're not permitted to do that work. Safety will always come first. It is always my highest priority, and I know that the commuter public expect that and understand that. Minister, thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you.
The Transport Minister has conceded he found out about South East Queensland's train crisis from social media. The director of his department, who's now in charge of Queensland Rail, also says he wasn't warned of an impending driver shortage. Here's State Political reporter George Roberts.
The rail debacle's still dominating daily politics.
Only one job they're committed to keeping, and that is the Transport Minister's job. Get rid of him.
First we had trains without seats, then trains that couldn't go in tunnels. Now we've got tunnels with no trains.
Thank you, Leader Opposition. Allowing the opposition the chance to flush out some revelations.
Was it Twitter or Facebook that advised you of the rail crisis? It was through Twitter that I noticed that through the trends like so.
But he blames the former management for keeping the risk of driver shortages secret.
The answers I was given by Queensland Rail proved to be wrong. And what's happened? The CEO gone, the chair gone.
His department chief wasn't told either.
No, because with a heart, I would have remembered.
If I had not been misled in the nature of briefs that I have received, I believe absolutely things could have been very different.
Colleagues are protecting the battle-weary minister.
I support him 100% as I know the entire cabinet does.
Absolutely. Sterling Hinchliffe is working very hard.
While the key Katter Party MPs think city folk could do with some perspective.
Because for 9 days, Telstra services have been out in the Gulf. So for our entire region for 9 days without phone. You imagine if Brisbane was without phones for 9 days.
The man brought in for damage control disagrees with the labels.
And we're using the word crisis, debacle, use the word schmozzle. Actually, the train service is not that bad.
It takes a year to train a driver and 100 more are needed. So when will full services be guaranteed?
I always worry when people use guarantee. I can guarantee I'll be working my socks off to make sure this is all right.
That's a lot of socks. George Roberts, ABC News, Brisbane.
It's simply not good enough. Those are the words the Premier has used once again to describe Queensland Rail. Commuters were left stranded this morning as a raft of problems paralysed the network. It was so bad, passengers are getting their money back. A costly apology after a Thursday morning that was nothing short of a train wreck.
Those customers who have travelled on the Queensland Rail network from first service this morning through to midday will have their fares refunded.
Yet another Queensland Rail train fail.
Passengers from the Gold Coast to Redcliffe faced hour-long delays and cancellations.
I was trying to get to the city, but everything was shut down and so I had to get an Uber all the way here.
Yeah, it was really annoying. I was 45 minutes late for work on my first shift at the airport.
I'm advised that it is nothing to do with train drivers. It is track maintenance issues.
It started before sunrise with a welding problem at Yeronga. A train breakdown between Currabee and Trinder Park then compounded the headache before storm damage caused signalling failures at South Brisbane and Dutton Park.
Now these are very rare events for our network.
The Premier is furious commuters weren't told what was happening.
They should have been more forthcoming with their explanation to commuters this morning, and frankly, it's not good enough.
An increasingly common criticism from the Premier. This was her in October.
It's not good enough. It's simply not good enough.
Queensland Rail and Stirling Hinchliffe are taking commuters for mugs, and commuters are paying the price for a government that just can't get it right.
Then there was this bizarre tweet. A laughing emoticon posted around lunchtime on the official Queensland Rail account. It's under investigation.
All the issues that occurred this morning have been fully remediated and the network is performing as we'd expect.
Meaning hopefully a smooth ride home.
Queensland's Crime and Corruption Commission has helped break open some of the state's biggest cases in recent years. Its secretive coercive hearings have forced witnesses to give up vital information, but some critics say the powers are being overused and go too far.
This is one of Queensland's most secretive rooms. Those called to testify in the so-called Star Chamber have no right to silence. If they refuse to cooperate or lie, they can be jailed.
They're a very powerful tool we use, but we take very seriously the use of them, and we have to convince ourselves that there is a proper basis to use the powers.
Evidence from CCC hearings helped convict 2 men over the McCulkin murders, a crime that had been unsolved since the 70s. In the Tiali Palmer case, the CCC trapped her foster family in a lie. Eventually, they gave up the killer, foster father Rick Thorburn. But while there's widespread support for the Star Chamber's use in major investigations, there's also concern the right to silence is being taken away in low-level cases.
There has to be some balance, a balance between police powers, CCC powers on the one hand and civil liberties on the other.
Over a decade, the number of investigative hearings have quadrupled to more than 340 a year. In 2017, Brisbane YouTuber Paul Pluta leaked top-secret documents detailing problems with Queensland Rail timetables and trains.
Newgen is a huge up.
It's understood he was summoned to the Star Chamber and forced to reveal his source. He's since been charged with allegedly revealing he was called to face a hearing.
It'd be different if you were talking about a terrorist incident, but this was talking about problems within Queensland Rail that needed in the public interest to be disclosed.
People who have access to confidential information are under an obligation of trust not to disclose that without very good reason. If there's, for instance, a belief that they want to blow the whistle, as it were, they should come to us confidentially.
The CCC doesn't release transcripts or recordings of its coercive hearings. In many cases, even telling someone you've been summoned to testify can be an offence. Civil libertarians want the powers reined in, but the CCC insists it's kept in check by the courts and a parliamentary oversight committee. Christian Silva, ABC News.